And we're back. The
All
Alchemist Part
right.
3, and it starts right now. What do you think of my new intro?
It's we'll work on it.
I thought you might say something like, don't ever
Ever.
do that again. Ever.
I just didn't expect that from you. It's not you. Hi, everybody.
Hey, Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. Yeah,
Like the newsies.
I'm kidding. But we are back with the Alchemist Part 3 book club. Start off with the review report. Go.
All right. So we finished last time. We're kind of summarize. They just arrived at the Oasis, the hundreds of people in the caravan.
Mm-hmm.
And when they got to the Oasis, they found out that they had to give up their guns because it's a neutral spot, safe zone, and which is pretty cool if you think about it. And they start right there.
So what happened after that? They one thing that I saw and noticed this time was I realized that's when they actually introduced the Alchemist, was when they first pulled up, because the first time I listened to the book, it was a real monotone voice, and it was real hard for me to follow. And I realized that they had actually introduced the Alchemist. He was like sitting on his horse watching the caravan arrive, and I was like, that's when he comes on the scene. But then they obviously reintroduced him later.
Right.
So the boy's hanging out with the Englishman, right? And they're reading books.
Yep. The Englishman is looking for the Alchemist. First thing he does when he gets there.
So here's one thing I wanted to ask about. Actually, let's just keep going through the summary, and then I'll circle back.
And he actually finds the Alchemist before the boy, correct?
Yeah, and he's not interested. The Alchemist kind of blows him off.
Because he already sees him, that he's just learned from the books. He hasn't really done any experience, and he just basically tells him to go do some stuff. Like,
right.
You got to have a little bit of both. You can't just be all in the facing the books and learning without any experience.
So the first time, and again, I missed a lot the first time I read this with the audiobook, but I definitely think I learned a lot more about the Alchemist this time, and he's kind of badass. I didn't really realize how cool of a character he is. So like, I imagine him like riding on a Clydesdale horse and just being so like stoic and awesome.
Yeah.
And scary a little bit, but
yeah,
like in a comforting way, like you're safe with him. Like, yeah, pretty much kill everybody. So like a magi.
Yeah.
So then did we go straight from there to when the boy sees the omen in the desert? Is that kind of like the next step? No, it's Fatima. It was Fatima, right? He meets the girl at the well.
Yeah. Well, anyway, he meets the girl at the well. It's at that same point. The most beautiful girl there, right?
I imagined a really tan chick with black hair with like crazy blue eyes and like big super white teeth, like in a painting from like Spain or Middle East. That was my vision.
I was hoping for the same thing. So yeah, let's go with that. Good vision.
So one thing I did want to ask you, and this isn't one of my official questions, but I missed it when I went through it, and I kept thinking they were going to bring it up, and I didn't circle back. What was the omen that he saw in the desert that made him? Was it something to do with birds? When he said there was going to be a battle?
The hawks, and they were fighting.
Okay. I kept thinking they would bring it up again, but they just referred to it as the omen, and I was like, I can't go back. I'm too far.
I understand.
And I was driving when I was listening to it.
And I don't know if I think it flipped to a vision when he was looking at him.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be wrong here, but
if we're wrong, put it in the comments. Okay.
and it's such a cool little thing that happens right after it when he believes in that omen, that sign so much that he goes to the chieftain and tells him about it, which was contrary to all belief, since you're not supposed to have war there. To say that there was war coming to the Oasis was just unheard of and seemed just ridiculous.
So there was like a whole the tribesmen were out fighting. So there was two basically sides of tribesmen out fighting in this desert, and there was an oasis kind of in between where the battle was and where both tribes were from, that were kind of their safe area to go back and like rest and refresh everything. Correct?
Yeah.
So did it say why they actually came to battle at their oasis?
I think it was something like depleted.
I think they just said they got too far out and they were like,
I think they were just so beat up. Once again, probably making something up here. They were so beat down from battle. They were at their its wits end kind of deal where it was like do or die.
Right.
But then the chieftains all get together and said, okay, what was it? We will give back everybody's weapons. And if for every 10 people that die that we kill of them, we'll give you 1 piece of gold. And what was the last? And if there's no attack, what was the? There's no attack.
You're gonna keep doing something until they do or something. I can't remember. Didn't he? Yeah, there was a counter offer that wasn't good. I remember that.
Yeah. Gosh, what was it?
Anyway, it wouldn't have went well for Santiago if they didn't attack. So,
which
is kind of scary because if you're basing everything on an omen, it's not like you actually heard they were going to attack. You just based it on like an omen. So
almost like a hope. And he didn't even need the money. That was the funny thing. He's like, he already had gold. He didn't really need any more. So that shouldn't have been that enticing, but then he almost tested his own strength of that omen.
And a good point was there was only like 500 raiders and there was like 2,000 people at the Oasis, or 2,000 warriors like at the Oasis, right?
Well, 500 died. I don't know about.
So, but they said they killed all of them. So my point was, I don't even know if they would have needed a heads up. They probably just wouldn't have done as well as they did because it sounds like the tribesmen were way outnumbered anyway.
Yeah, they were talking about the women and children. They kind of bunched them in. So because they would have been they never would have been any kind of defensive posture, and they probably would have died quickly just because they had been there in the way.
Okay, so they show up.
I forget what the heck
Well, we only have 30 minutes, so you'll have to think about it later. Okay?
Anyway,
Bub. So then they show up and they get waxed, and they leave the leader for last, right? And they ask him why they showed up, and he basically says, we were just so thirsty and hungry pretty much and so exhausted that we came here to steal all your stuff.
Yep.
And then instead of giving him an honorable death, they hung him from an old tree out back or something and left him hanging there. Like an honorable death was to be beheaded or whatever. It's like a sword.
And then the alchemist comes in.
What does he say first? I don't remember, because he comes in and starts talking to the boy, right?
Yeah. He's just like, who are you to read the omens of the desert?
Yeah.
And tell them of what is to come. Who are you? Basically, almost like, why? How did you know to change the story? How did you know my secrets kind of deal?
Right.
And he was mad and like throwing a big, there wasn't he waving like a sword around or something? Or
he had his, what they call it? The curved, there's a name for it. The curved magi looking sword. He had it out and he had held it up, and the boy thought he was just going to cut his head off, but then he just like stuck it to his face and kind of made one bead of blood draw.
Yep. And he was like, that was me right here.
Yeah.
And that's what he's like, I was just testing you to see if you were strong or whatever, the alchemist.
So then after that, they got into a big discussion after that, right? Because Santiago started talking about how he wanted to go to the pyramids and all that, but he also was in love with this chick at the well, Fatima.
Right. And he starts explaining what would happen if he chose to stay there. And he said it'd be great for a year, and then the bad things start happening. And, he gave him all the scenarios of what would most likely happen. It was pretty neat because You don't know if that was true, but it's probably most likely.
Mm-hmm. Which I thought was really interesting because I kind of thought that the Alchemist kind of nailed it when he went through, because he basically gave him a couple different versions of what his life could be like, and I thought he did really well. I don't want to say too much about that because I got a question on it. So, but then after that, how did they get from that to when they were getting ready to leave? Because the Alchemist basically offered to take him, right?
Yes. He had to go do some training, didn't he? Like go into the desert and train before he would tell him which way to go.
See, I don't remember because of that last scene they ended on. They were both leaving. That's what part 3 ended on.
Yeah. I think that's kind of what was going on. Maybe I'm wrong. I think he was just kind of helping him train to see if he was worthy of it. And he was kind of telling him about the Philosopher's Stone and the elixir of life and all that, and like what he's been working on.
The elixir of life. So then that's where the curtain closes on part 3, is they're getting ready to ride off to the pyramids.
Pretty much.
I did want to say, so I kept bringing up the point that I was having trouble following the book on the audiobook, but when I started reading this, so I couldn't find the one I was using because I was running out of time, and I was like, heck with it, I'm going to have to listen to this while I'm at work or while I'm driving instead of reading the actual book. So I went back and I actually clicked on the link that's in the pin below, and it's the one that's actually read by Paulo Coelho.
Oh, really?
And I'm pretty sure it's him. It's his picture on the front, and I think it's read by him, but he actually enunciates all the different characters correctly, and I can follow it like way better.
Way better.
The old version that I was listening to was just somebody it was a woman just reading it in a real monotone voice, and it was like real hard to differentiate when something happened because it was so flat. But I noticed, because I was driving when I went down to Columbia yesterday, I was driving and I was listening to part 3. And I was like, man, this seems so good. And I was like drinking coffee, and I was all into it. And I was like, oh, it's just the guy reading it's making it so much more interesting. So I followed it way better.
Yep.
So the link should be in the description here, and it'll be pinned in the comments. So that one is a really good one to use if you don't have it.
I wish I would have had that.
Yeah, I think I might actually go back and re-listen to the first part with him reading it, because I feel like I'll have a better understanding of what's going on.
It is kind of hard to follow, just anyway.
Yeah, but I think it's way easier to follow. I think I was making it too hard before, and it seems easier now. I mean, there was a couple times I still had to go back, but it's still way better.
Right. Well, it's like comedy. It's like having the
cadence.
And everything, then the hardness, and then backing it off, it kind of shows you when you're in that dream state, and then when they're back in reality and they're going forward and backward, they're almost just staying the same, and it's hard to tell when they're going back and forth and stuff. Yeah, I don't like audiobooks, honestly. It's so...
You don't?
Not really. That's why I listen to them as fast as possible.
You're still old school.
Old? That's about it.
You're old.
Thank you.
All right, who's going first on questions, you or me? Okay, I'll go first.
Okay.
Thoughts on the Englishman and the boy sharing books and the Emerald Tablets? I was thinking, what books do you think that he was reading? Because they talk about like dragons in them and all kinds of different interesting things, and like he's learning all this stuff. Maybe they said and I missed it, but like, what books was he reading? Like, was it the Bible, or what do you think it was? Was it scrolls?
Well, if he was from the seminary, so he kind of knew the Bible. So I don't know if he would. Maybe there's another versions or something.
I guess I meant more the Englishman, because the Englishman seemed to have like a big thing full of books he was studying.
Yeah. So which ones they gave him? I'm not. I can't remember. I think you're right. I think it was like the Emerald Tablets and the Book of Alchemy. Where there was one book they did name. It was like the Bible of Alchemy kind of deal. If I remember.
Yeah. Right. It was like an instructional book for alchemy or whatever, but he had a bunch of other stuff that he was reading too. So I had another thought on that. Was the guy, you sent me that video yesterday, was that guy, is it AJ Hogue or how do you pronounce his last name?
That's what I would say. I don't know.
He was talking about it, and he brought up the comment, and he said that Santiago tells the Englishman that he spends too much time reading and he should pay more attention to the caravan and more attention to life, right? So I got thinking about that, and I thought that's going to be my question for you, your application question. Have you ever found yourself in a similar situation in life? You are not paying enough attention to something in your real life, but you're focused too much on something like that. Could be whatever.
Oh yeah, all the time. It happens too much though, because I'm good at creating. When I stopped doing YouTube videos, honestly, that's one I could think of right off the bat, and it was fun. But when I took it back, I got to do more of the stuff that was ended up being better for me. I don't know.
It's okay. It's a kind of it's a tough question in a way. So,
I'll repeat the question a little bit. Maybe
I was just referring to the thought of Santiago kind of pressuring the Englishman, saying, you're spend too much time in your books and reading, and you're not paying enough attention to, you're not stopping to smell the roses. You're not keeping your eye on the caravan, because they were traveling with all the people, and the Englishman was basically just reading the whole time.
Yeah.
So I said, have you ever found yourself in a similar situation in life, such as you're not paying enough attention to something in your life, and you're paying too much attention to something, books, reading, videos, movies, music?
Like the question you first asked. Well, yeah, I think I did it all the time. That's why I'm always reverse engineering myself, because I'm always trying to do a balance of that. Too much studying. And it seems, for me, it's like the winter, I do more studying because I can't do as much action. But in the summer, I'm doing way more action and a little bit less studying. So I kind of do it on, my environment, I guess, because a lot of my fun action stuff is outside things. But yeah, I think that was a good point for both of them to finally realize that. And that's one of the things I wrote down. It's like, wisdom and experience, and you can't really have wisdom without experience. You can't have a good experience without wisdom. And so to have one or the other, you got to have some of both. So I think it's a good point for all of us.
Gotcha.
Good question.
Okay, you're up.
Mine was kind of similar, I guess. Not really, but if you were to identify yourself as one of them right now, which one would you feel like you are? The Englishman, or the boy Santiago, or the alchemist?
Which one I am, or which one
do you identify with right now the most?
Probably Santiago. I feel like I don't really want to be him, but I feel like that's where I'm at. I feel like still have a lot to learn, and I'm still naive sometimes, and I want to learn that. Like, I want to be a combination of the Englishman and the alchemist. I want to be well-read, smart, and brave, warrior type person, but I feel like I'm more Santiago, because like I said, I feel like I have a lot to learn. And I still get drawn in sometimes, and I'm looking for a treasure, but I may already have it, or I might be looking for something, and it's like I don't need it. It's irrelevant. It's like, and I'll tell myself that I don't get hung up on material possessions, but maybe I'm still kind of following one that maybe I think is not a material possession, but it kind of actually is. So.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like the whole point of it is like the alchemist is kind of saying to the boy, it's like, you got to be part Englishman, part Santiago to be the alchemist.
Right. And I think they actually did say that at one point, didn't they, that you have to be like both of us?
I don't know. I'm sure. Makes sense to me. But yeah, but I think, and that's a good thing to be like Santiago, because most people aren't. So you could say that's naive, but you can say a lot of people just don't have any, cojones to go after what they want, or, take chances on things. There's an art to that. That's creativity, because you can see something that other people can't see. That's why they can't see it. That's why they stay comfortable. Mm-hmm. They can't see what they could create in the future.
It's a really good question. I like it.
And you answered it. My follow-up question was, which one do you want to be? And I guess you pretty much answered that. So
I feel like definitely be the alchemist, but have the knowledge and the information that the Englishman has learned for sure. All right, my next question. I wanted to talk about the camel driver. I really liked his views on life. He seems pretty laid back and like living in the now. And he made a comment, and I wanted to ask you about it. He said the camel driver said that God rarely shows you your future, but when he does, it's meant to be altered. What does that mean to you, or what do you think he meant by that? That seems pretty heavy. Like it isn't a lot of words there, but
it's almost like he's saying, it's interesting. It's almost like he's saying that's where we have our free will. He's saying, hey, this is coming. So since it's coming, you might have a chance to take a different route. That's interesting. That's cool,
heavy, right?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, we both like him because he's just the Native American spirit, the hunter-gatherer. I'm living for today. If I die today, it's a good day. And I'm going to live good today.
It's like if God wanted your future to be altered, why would he give you a dream of it? Unless he was going to give you an option where you had a choice of two different things.
Yeah.
It's heavy.
Like that premonition that's pretty cool. That's heavy. Yeah. So he was a seer. He was kind of an alchemist himself, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're up.
I don't think I have another one. I did like the part where they were talking about, and they said, patience with consistency equals momentum.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he didn't say momentum, but that's what I wanted to put.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
It's a really good point. It's like patience with consistency, just good habits.
Mm-hmm.
Good habits, I hate to say habits because it makes it seem like you're doing something you don't want to do. Because after a while, you do it because you like it. Because otherwise, you wouldn't keep doing it. There's a good benefit from it. But it starts off as a habit because you don't usually want to do it.
Like now, proper planning prevents piss poor performance, also known as the
6 Ps.
Mr. Foss, shop class, 7th grade.
I think we learned more in shop class and did cooler things in shop class. That flower in the glass thing, plastic, whatever. That's still one of the coolest things.
Yeah. How many times, if anybody's listening and you've ever heard or listened to Dave Ramsey, he always says that's like taking advice from your shop teacher who's missing a finger, and our shop teacher actually was missing his finger. So,
and he was smart.
He seemed normal.
He was smart. I liked him.
Mm-hmm.
He would just get mad if you were doing something stupid.
Yeah, he was all right. It was funny that his finger was missing though from cutting it off with a machine.
I think I still got the Missouri cutout clock that we did, with a honey.
My mom still has that. I'm pretty sure, and I think she still has one my brother made.
Oh wow!
My brother, I don't know if my brother had the same shop teacher, but they're
probably.
I would say it wouldn't be that unusual, but I think she had something that was my brother's like that. But I also had that one that was the copper thing where we kind of embossed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think she still has that. I
look forward to that class. Nothing else I look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
I should have taken Votech. I always knew.
All right, I got a couple more notes here. It says, or they talked about, the boy was saying everything has been written by the same hands. And he was kind of talking about, I feel like he was talking about literature in general, and he was talking about a lot of different books. And I was thinking about the whole thing with the Emerald Tablets, which is separate from the book, if you don't know. And I was thinking, does this mean we are all authors and we all have the essence that's been added to us Because when he says the same hands, like, what is that actually? What does he mean by that? Is he talking about God? Is he talking about our soul or the soul of the world? Because he talks about the soul of the world a lot. When the boy meets the girl at the well, he talks about the soul of the world and how he felt and how amazing everything seemed out of time to stood still. And he talks about the soul of the world a lot. Was that, what is he meaning by that?
Well, and like a lot of artists say that, a lot of musicians say that. Michael Jackson would come up with a riff and come up with a good idea for a song, and he would call Quincy Jones in the middle of the night, 2 a.m, and say, "Hey, we got to go record." And he was serious because he was afraid that Prince was going to pick up on the same thing. Because a lot of musicians kind of start realizing they're almost like antennas picking up the information, and they know because they've had examples where they had a song and someone else stole it, and it wasn't because they heard it from them. They were picking up the same signal kind of thing. So there's a lot of people that kind of in the creative world already see that happening. So they almost feel like there's this connection between all of us.
Heavy.
Holy Spirit.
Yeah, that's what I should have said. I was thinking when I said essence and soul, I was thinking Holy Spirit.
Well, that's the thing. It's written by the same hand. It's just written in a bunch of different frameworks, so everybody can understand in their own culture in their own way, and through fantasy stories, and through real stories, and I can't disagree.
So we talked about it before, but when the Alchemist's description of the boy, if he stays versus if he goes on the adventure, he says is the story about the difference between working on oneself versus settling in and acquiring material possessions. Because he describes to the boy a series: if you stay, you'll get married, you'll have this, you'll become a leader, you'll acquire these things. Do you think that's what he was getting at, was those two paths?
Yeah. Yep. And you gotta, when you travel and go experience the world, you gotta travel a little lighter. Can't really, you're just gonna be a victim to a thief, right? Back then, I guess.
Yeah. It would have been weird to own like have a bunch of money back then. There was like nowhere to put it, just like in a bag.
Yeah.
Probably would have been much better to be in power than have a bunch of cash, because the power was more useful than coins.
I'm pretty sure that was a selling point on
Leadership.
Going away from the gold standard, not having to move gold around because it was expensive to move it.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's a book we should cover. One more thing I wanted to bring up is that the boy talking to Fatima before his departure, he started to explain why he loves her so much, and he's almost like a description. He starts to name things, and she stops him there, and she says, basically, I don't need reasons why you're in love. If you're in love, you're just in love. And I thought that was really cool, because I thought that's kind of true. I think in life, a lot of times in a relationship, we look for reassurances that we're loved. But it's like, if you are in love, you don't need to like explain it really, and you don't need to list it to someone. You'll show it through actions, and they'll just know. And
it's
it won't
almost
be
too hard to explain anyway.
Yeah, it's almost something you can't put verbiage to anyway. It just is.
What's a sneeze feel like? Awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's a good point.
So I did something else fun. I actually went to Chat GPT, and I said, write me 10 questions about part 3 of the Alchemist. And I didn't use any of them, but I've got them here, and they are amazing. So I'm probably going to quit my job and just have Chat GPT do it from now on. The Alchemist talks about the importance of understanding the language of the world. How does Santiago come to understand this language in part 3, and what do you think it represents beyond literal communication? That's number 6. Part 3 introduces the theme of alchemy and its various interpretations. How does the notion of alchemy, both in its literal and metaphorical sense, shape the narrative and the characters' transformations?
Those are kind of big questions where it's like, it's a 15-minute answer.
I know, but there's 10 of them like that. They're all like, I was like, whoa, these are pretty deep. They're all huge questions. Throughout the story, the theme of personal legend is emphasized. How does part 3 shed further light on the concept of personal legend? Did your understanding of personal legends evolve as the story progressed? Each question
Answer
has
is
like three
yeah.
questions inside of it.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of fun though. I didn't actually use any of them in the ones I had, but
Well, it's it's good to see a different point of view, even if it's
I think I'll just make Chat GPT our other person in our deal or book club here until we get more members. So, Chat GPT, what do you think?
I was gonna do a robot voice, but it would have been terrible.
Yeah, we can't edit that out, so I prefer you not do that.
All
right.
It was kind of cool to see that the Englishman was starting to understand that whole thing, that he had to start living a little instead of living in the books. And I think that I've definitely done that a few times in my life, but I think it was important too, because I don't think I would have been ready without going. Sometimes you can really it's like a factory. It's better to do a bunch of things the same for an hour and then go to something else and do it for an hour than to go do one thing for 10 minutes, another thing 10 minutes. You know what I mean? So sometimes it's just good to read and go read.
I thought he didn't though. Was that after that? Because I remember they swapped on the caravan where the boy started reading and the Englishman started watching. And I thought he was annoyed afterward and said, I didn't even learn anything new, and went back to his books. Or was it after that you're referring to?
Santiago kind of did the same thing.
Yeah, he was like, I didn't learn anything from your books.
So they weren't really even trying.
Yeah, or maybe they were looking for a reason that the other person's thing like sucked and that they didn't want to participate.
They were trying to get some spark from them and it didn't work.
Lame.
And like, it sucks.
Your books are lame.
I'm going to say some more. Don't you love your dad's painting?
Yeah.
It's awesome. My uncle got me that. It's a tile from Spain.
I like how slow you're doing. My fireplace.
I don't bow to corporate sponsors. Samsung.
Bear. Little. Yellow.
Little.
Different. All right, I think we're done here. You got anything else to add? We're over 30 minutes.
Oh, no. Yeah. Stay tuned. Part 4 on Sunday.
Next Sunday, part 4.
Sunday night at 7 to 9, somewhere between there.
Yeah. Follow the channel. We'll put up a upcoming live you can go click on and save it to your watch later. And see y'all then. Have a good night.
Later.
Bye.